Hi, thanks so much for joining me for the call.
Hello, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what is biomedical engineering?
Sure. So biomedical engineering is kind of like a hodgepodge specialty. Uh, you literally learn a little bit of electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, a little bit of biochemistry, a little bit of um, what can, all
Materials.
sorts of materials, random majors that essentially all the math and sciences that you can think of that goes towards healing the human body.
Awesome. And can you tell me about the products that you've had an opportunity to work on as a biomedical engineer?
Sure. Some of the products I've worked on in the past involved like plastic implants for the skull and nose and whatnot. And then I've also worked on implantable pressure sensors for heart failure monitoring and um, transcatheter aortic replacement delivery systems, as well as transcatheter mitral valve replacement systems. And then currently now I'm working on essentially an intelligence guided system to guide orthopedic joint replacement.
Awesome. So you had an opportunity to be in a semi-rotational program at Edwards Life Sciences. Can you tell me about the program and the opportunities that you had?
Sure. So yeah, the rotational program was about 4 different rotations. They're all about 5 months each. Um, the first one is kind of assigned to you because you're just out of college and you don't know too much about the industry just yet. So I did like an R&D one first with just traditional surgical heart valves, and then from there on, the second to you pick from a list of projects across the company. And then the last one you have to make yourself. So you have to reach out and network across the company and convince people to let you join their team. The second one I did was also an R&D one over in their advanced tech um, division, which is their internal like think tank that funnels early concept ideas towards other business units. That's where I worked on an initial product for a transcatheter mitral valve delivery system. And then from there, I went on to work in their Utah facility to do like quality manufacturing work on um, another delivery system for aortic valve. And then the last one, I worked in this division called critical care in the marketing side of things and learned a lot on the other side of the pond.
Okay, and so after you completed the rotational program, you ended up staying with Edwards Life Sciences. And can you tell me about what role you held there and what you worked on?
Sure. It's probably no surprise that I ended up in R&D. Um, no bias or anything. And the last division I was in, critical care, it just seemed like a very seamless transition at the time. Um, I also was very interested in working on wearables at the near future. Um, so yeah, I worked on more like non-invasive vitals measurement systems and learned a lot about coding and hardware, things that I wouldn't have the opportunity to do so straight out of college.
So, Virginia, after your time at Edwards Life Sciences, you joined a startup company. Can you tell me about your experience working in a startup environment?
Sure. So, um, honestly, working at Edwards is a great opportunity for me to, lay out my foundation and learn what it takes to operate a bigger sized company in the med device space. Um, and it also had a lot of resources for me to train and learn how to machine on the side. And those type of opportunities help me transition into my startup opportunity I'm in right now. I can say, so there is a bit of a culture shock switching from like a bigger company to a startup. Um, some things that you kind of take for granted, um, where mistakes wouldn't happen from certain things, pop up a lot, and processes are not as robust or well tuned out in a smaller company.
Yeah.
So a lot of that type of stuff I'm still getting used to, but other than that, I love it. It's been unpredictable. I joined the startup thinking like, okay, I'll be a support engineer for a new product line. I'll just take the ropes. And 6 months into the new job, they suddenly are like, oh, by the way, you're going to be the new lead engineer for a new product line. So I'm having some more opportunities to grow in ways that I may not have in my last role.
So Virginia, a question for you is how do you know when it's time to leave the opportunity that you have now and move on to something else?
All right, so this is very pertinent to what I used to encounter. I used to have this mentality that work is work, and it's normal to just feel kind of dread when you wake up. Um, you just deal with it. You just work to make a living, and that's it. But it got to a point where I started realizing that maybe it's not normal to dread waking up in the mornings and to drag your feet for another 30 minutes each morning. Maybe it's not normal to, talk shit, so to speak,
Okay.
whenever any friends ask you about anything involving work. I think it's just a lot of like listening to yourself and realizing when enough is enough.
Yeah.
And I think especially, with my upbringing of being like A student, it's very difficult to quit because we have this ingrained mentality that when you quit, you're failing.
Yeah.
Um,
I have that
and at
feeling
the
too.
end of the day, it's all about, your mental health, um, how you actually feel about your job, because that's what you do for a majority of your time. And if you're starting to feel like you need more therapy sessions and whatnot, it's a really good sign to leave.
Yeah. Um, that was really good. So Virginia, what are some things you wish you knew early on in your career?
So early on in my career, I was very focused on doing a straight and narrow path, thinking that, as long as I just follow someone else's footsteps and follow what is a proven pathway to success, I should be good. But I'm learning that what works for someone may not work for me, and that is the learning process of just failing as I go. Um, and another big thing is learning not to please as many people as possible.
Yeah.
I felt like early on I got pretty burnt out in my career and burnt out on some of my decisions, trying to overextend myself and please everyone I could around me. And I found that it was just a waste of time, and I was backpedaling myself.
Yeah.
Um, because at the end of the day, the only person who really knows what's good for me is myself.
So Virginia, one last question was, what do you see for your future? Where do you want to be in, the next 5 to 10 years?
So it'll be funny to watch this video in 5 to 10 years because what I say now is probably going to be end up very different from what I end up being. But it's part of the fun, honestly. 5 years ago, I thought I would be a doctor, and that's obviously not the case. But I think right now, as it stands, maybe in 5 to 10 years, maybe be like a VP of R&D for a startup, or opening my own design firm for consulting purposes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm sure you're gonna accomplish that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for uh, speaking with me. I know that a lot of people are gonna gain a lot from this conversation. And if possible, can anybody reach out? Can people reach out to you through the cortexSTEM group to ask you any questions?
Yeah, definitely. I know this has been a very short conversation, and if people are willing to reach out to me for advice, feel free to reach out to me. I could try to tailor my advice to you.